Hello, everyone, and welcome to HubSpot Hacks, B2B inbox engagement, actionable tactics for high-performing email. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items. If you're in Kaltura and you click over to on the right-hand side, there's a live stage. That is where we will be putting polls and questions, and you can send a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You can clap. You can send hearts when you like things. And I'm going to go ahead and launch the first poll in a second here. To dive in, Mark Fisher is a Chief Technology Officer here at Penguin Strategies, and our very special guest today is Jay Schwedelson. Jay is the co-founder and owner of subjectline.com and the host of the Do This Not That podcast. And we're very excited to have Jay here today to be sharing some email tactics, best practices. So with that, Mark, I'm going to let you kick it off while I publish the first.
Sounds good, Margaret. Thank you very much. So first of all, Jay, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you with us.
Amazing to be here. Thank you.
Looking forward to the session. Missed you in HubSpot in inbound last time, but hopefully I'll be able to hear you this year. We'll be coming over to Boston. Sounds
nice.
Like it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm very interested for us. We can dive in a few seconds to hear everything about emailing and high performance. I know this is a touchy point. Anyone dealing with marketing automation, marketing operations, marketing on a whole, this is something that everyone is still trying to deal with, especially with Google and the likes changing the rules and moving the goalposts every once in a while to keep us on our feet.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to this. So I think we can kick this off. We've done our introductions, and
I'll share the results of the first poll. It looks like 75% of our audience is sending 2 to 3 marketing emails a week, and 25% is sending 4 to 6. So yeah, go ahead and kick it off about why email and talk about how frequently should we be sending emails.
Is that for me?
Sure.
In general, I believe you should be sending out more than you think that you should. I know that that's not a hard number, but I think that in general, marketers overthink email. The most important thing is being relevant. If you send out relevant information, you could send an email out 3 times a day and people will consume that. It's where all your emails are just sales emails or register for a webinar emails or things that are basically become wallpaper. That's when your cadence becomes a problem. But relevance is directly correlated to frequency in email.
So what you're saying is it's one, it's relevance. Obviously, I'm also hearing people are paying for, I've forgotten the name of the company now, micro communities where they're paying for newsletters to get, once a week on updated specific data that they're interested, and they're even paying for that newsletter so that actually gets sent to them by email at a certain cadence because of the relevance that they're paying for the content. And if you think of it, whether we're paying for podcasts or we signing up for podcasts, that's content that that's obviously relevant, like yours. And I would want to listen to that whenever a new episode comes out. So what you're saying is we should treat email the same way. If it's relevant, then the cadence will dictate, how, as long as I have relevant new information coming through, I could get that on a daily basis even, and then I would decide if I want to read that or not.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, we think about marketing, we're like, oh, email doesn't work for me. Okay. It's not pulling the response rate. It's not filling my pipeline. And they'll say, well, what are you sending out? And we're like, well, we're sending out, this sales email from this salesperson, or this outdated content from 2023, or, webinar invites. And the way that you build engagement with email is you really need to promote things with no agenda at first. Gary Vee talks about a lot where it's, give, and then ask. And that is the secret sauce of email, where, send out an email that says, here's a great new piece of content you should check out. And don't ask them for anything. Leave it ungated. Don't ask them to fill out a form. Just say, here it is. Here's a new statistic I think you might find relevant. And don't ask them for anything. And then that third email or that fourth email, say, by the way, if you want more stuff like this, check out this webinar, or we have a new product demo I want to tell you about. But if you think that you're just going to inundate people with your offers and that's going to be how you win, you won't. You're going to fail.
So no combination of this is the most, innovated, updated blog that we're sending out, which is ungated, interesting information, with a nice CTA at the bottom. And if you're interested in speaking to us, click here. So you're trying to get two things in the way, and they see through that and they say, okay, well, you're trying to sell something to me, but in a clever way. And then obviously it really puts you off. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer that every time you hit send on any email, you hope one thing happens. You have to hope for one thing to happen. You can't hope 7 things happen, because people are barely opening up your email. They're barely reading your email. They're not like, it's not like you send it to your mother and she's going to read the whole thing and be like, this is amazing. I'm so proud of you. You're sending it to somebody who barely cares. So they might do that one thing. So when you send them, here's this blog, read it, and then also respond to this offer and do these 7 other things, forget it. It's not going to happen. So you send them things that are of value to them. You become a thought leader in their mind. You build this relationship with them in their mind. And then that next email say, by the way, this is something that, maybe we should talk about because obviously you're interested in this topic. And that's the path to success.
So your assumption should be that we can't, on the marketing level, we're at the awareness stage. We're giving, we're educating, we're helping, we're giving out on our best practices that we can. And then that way we'll get people interested in the content and come back, obviously, or in this case, open the email. And then once you gain trust afterwards, then again, it depends where the person is in the buyer's cycle or journey. If they're interested in the content, then there's a good chance they might be interested in your service, but that might be in 6 months' time, in 3 years' time, doesn't make a difference. And then once it's relevant for them, they'll say, this person knows what they're talking about. Maybe I should see what they're offering. And then fill out a form or then reply and so on. Okay, I think that's...
Yeah, look, we're all chasing attribution. That's what we do. We all try to figure out, well, how did we get this new customer? What tactic did we do that got this new customer to come in so we can scale it up and throw, gas on the fire and do more of it? When the reality of it is you need to be everywhere all the time, sharing really relevant information. So when that potential buyer is in market for your stuff, you are top of mind. It's not that you're going to send somebody something and they're like, you know what? I don't need a new CRM, but this sales email was so compelling. You know what? I'm going to stop what I'm doing and switch my CRM. That doesn't happen, right? That's not the way it works. So this idea of attribution is almost like a myth in many cases. Look, if you're selling a pair of socks, then attribution's easy. You have a discount on your socks, you send it out, whatever. But if you're selling, accounting software, okay, it's not going to be because you sent that one email. It's going to be because of this 6-month journey you've taken people on, and that's how it works.
Very interesting. So, okay. So email is still relevant. I think we had a short conversation about this yesterday for a few minutes, is that I told you that I had a call with we had a call with customer a few days ago, and it was a conversation between the marketing team and the sales team, and the marketing team is in charge of the inside sales as well. And they were talking about email on a high level, and as I think I told you, they said, well, you guys deal with email, we're not interested with email in email anyway. We've moved to LinkedIn. We're trying to message on LinkedIn. That's the tactic, and we don't really believe in emailing as well. But following up on what I told you, the story and what you're saying to me now, is it kind of makes sense, and they're kind of right, because they should be marketing when the person is in the market, and then marketing should be the people that are giving out that information, helping them, assisting them, educating them, and then keep them top of mind as much as possible. And sales should only be reaching out when it is actually when they're in market, unless the salesperson wants to do that as in parallel as well, which is also a good idea.
Yeah, to me, they're mutually exclusive. I love LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn, right? But it's not an either or. It's an addition to, and I would say email has never been more relevant. And one of the things that you see, there's talk about us heading into a difficult economy, or things might get bumpy, or things that, budgets getting cut. And the interesting thing is, if you are in a bumpy economy, if you just go on social and you post on social and you do things on social, you'll get to maybe 15% of your network, right? If you want to do search ads, that's very, very expensive, and you're not going to reach your whole audience. Direct mail, super expensive to reach your whole audience. The only marketing channel on earth that is very, very, very low cost, and you can communicate with your audience whenever you want, to your entire audience, is email. And in a down economy, it becomes the most relevant, most important channel that you have, because when you cut your budget, you can still keep sending out that email. So to me, to not have email be front and center in your marketing program, in your sales efforts, is a major miss. And if email doesn't work for you, I would argue it's because you're not paying attention to the little things, because in the world of email, there's no silver bullet. There's no one thing that you're going to do that's going to make it all work. There's like a million little things. So that's why I'm always on the soapbox of email.
Got it. Okay, that's very, very interesting. That's great. I think that's relevance, as you said, making sure that when we're going to details now on how, on not only how to be relevant, but actually how to send the emails, obviously. But I think that's something that everyone should make sure that they are dealing with and adding to their toolbox.
Totally.
Margaret,
So we
you
have
want to for the next one? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have the results of our next poll. The best indicator of email performance is an open rate, a click rate, or a click-through rate. Let's see what people say. I'm going to end the poll now. We have 50-50 on open rate and click rate. What do we think, Joe? I know you have a lot of thoughts on this.
Okay, well, it's all important, all right? But and I know this is not what most people would say. I'm very focused on the open rate, and I'm going to tell you why. Two things. Number one, if you don't get the email opened, who actually cares what's in your email? I mean, what is the difference, what great creative and copy and offer you have, if they don't get the email opened? And I think that marketers now are confused by your open rate, because open rates are inflated because of Apple's iOS, because of bots. If you go into any of your whatever email platform you're using, and you go open up your email tracking and you send out an email, it says you got a 30% open rate. You have 100,000 people, and it says 30,000 people open up your email. Here's an absolute fact: 30,000 people did not open your email. Open rate tracking is just inflated and wrong. So most marketers are like, well, then I'm only going to focus on the click, and that's an epic mistake. Open rate tracking is directional. It's like taking a Gallup poll of your marketing tactic. So if, for example, you did an A/B test, you took 50,000 people and another 50,000 people, and in one subject line you put an emoji, right? And the other one you didn't put an emoji. The one with the emoji gets a 40% open. The one without the emoji gets a 25% open rate. What you know is that tactic won. The one with the emoji won, and you should go further down that path. So your open rate is the indicator of what tactics you're doing that are working to get people initially interested. And of course, you want the click, and ultimately you need people to fill out the forms and respond, or else what's the point of all of it? But to discount the open rate, I think is a fail, in my opinion.
Got it. Okay. I wanted to ask you a question, which I think is also to do with before we go into, as you said, best practices and what the poll's talking about, open rate and click rate, around what is the outcome of successful email for you in the sense that, I mean, what is the goal of the email? So as you said, because email could be engage with the content, it could be book a meeting, it depends, watch the webinar, um, sign up for this specific podcast, and so on and so forth. But in essence, that's the goal, correct? And the click and obviously the open rate are all a means to an end. And my ultimate goal is it's like the same thing with MQLs, SQLs, and all that. That's a means to end. If I don't bring in revenue at the end, then my entire funnel is irrelevant. It's not important, all this tracking that I'm doing. If there's no dollars and cents at the end of it, then we're not really going to have a business. So it's the same thing. So would you say that it's important to understand and discuss internally what is success? Like, what is the goal of the email that you're sending it out? Is that to get people to look at the article, read the article? Do they scroll down? If I can have that analytics, it's a third of the article stayed on page for 2 minutes. Is that more of a tangible goal if I can track that than me obviously just saying, okay, open the email? Open the email, as you said, for me is a means to an end. It's part of the journey. It's not the main goal.
100%. You need to get everybody on the same page internally about how do you define success of your email program? What is the metric, at the end of the day that's going to define success? And I think a mistake that happens is we lump together leads. We say, okay, we put out this content. How many leads do we have? And we have a quarterly goal of getting X number of leads generated via email. And the problem with that is, and you alluded to it a little bit, different types of content will produce different results than when you're promoting it via email. So what do I mean by that? If you promote a cheat sheet or a checklist, okay, those two forms of content are the most downloaded forms of business-to-business content that exist. You will get more people to download that than any other type of content. But those two forms of content are also the most top of the funnel leads. They are they're showing the least intent. They're not ready to buy. Whereas if you're promoting an ebook or a webinar, right, those are much harder pieces of content and people to digest and show up for. And if people sign up for that, they're further down the funnel. But in many of our tracking reports, they're just lumped together as leads. And then the further down the funnel is if you're promoting a case study or even a product demo, right? Or a spec sheet on products. If you're promoting that and you get people to download it, that's not just a lead. That is like they're in market. So I think a management of expectations internally of what are we promoting? And then how many of these quote unquote leads are we expecting depending on the type of content, the type of offer that we are doing, and then having separate layouts in terms of your tracking and reporting for what is success. And it can't just be like leads are success, because that is it's just not accurate. There's too much to it.
Very interesting. So what you're actually saying is kind of the way when you're looking at scoring, for example, where we're more looking at what type of content and where that person is interacting with the content.
Yes.
In the sense that where the content is in the buyer's journey. So if I'm interacting with a case study that you sent to me that is ungated, and I actually open that email and you can see that I actually clicked on the case study, that is much more powerful, or maybe not the right word, powerful, but it's worth much more to send maybe an internal alert to my sales team.
Yes.
Than someone actually signing up and attending a webinar invite that's top of the funnel, that's talking about something that's, that we just educated.
100% right. Like if you have a webinar, like latest industry trends in, HR versus a case study about your software that you're selling. If somebody's checking out that case study, that is way more useful than somebody just trying to get educated about some latest trends, right? So to your point, and I probably even need to think about this a little more on my end, it's not just the content type, but it's also what is the content. So for example, if you did a webinar that was, here's the latest update to our software, and that was a webinar, that's also in market, right? So it's not just the content type, but it's actually also what it is that your content's discussing.
And then that obviously ties into your success, because if I send out a case study to a list of people that have never heard of us, then I'm just shooting darts. And the chance that 1% of those people will say, "Oh, this is relevant for me," that's just pure luck, because most of them probably at top of the funnel.
That is not a marketing strategy. That is hoping. Hoping is not marketing.
Okay, so I'm going to move to the next slide, because I saw this is an interesting slide. What is this? This is the benchmarks that we should be looking at, or how do you, in the sense of success?
This is an interesting slide. I'm going to tell you why. I think industry averages are annoying. I'm going to tell you why I say that. So I get questions like, "Oh, I'm in the automotive sector. What's the industry average open rate and click-through rate?" Or I'm in finance or whatever. And I'm like, what does that matter? And the reason I say that is you have your brand, you have your offers, you have your pricing, you have your creative, you have all that. All that matters is that you should treat email marketing as if you were a swimmer or a runner. And all you're really doing is competing against yourself. And what you really want to think about is benchmarking your own email efforts, but not just saying our email. This is the mistake I see all the time. We get an average open rate of 30% and a 4% click-through rate across our email. That is crazy. You send out different kinds of emails. You send out a newsletter. You send out offer emails. You send out sales emails. You send out announcement emails. Every type of email should be in its own bucket. And for yourself, you need to benchmark yourself. What is our average open rate and click-through rate for our email newsletter? Great. It's 30% and 2%. Then the next week, what are you going to do to try to get that higher? And you want to beat yourself. The averages that matter are your own benchmarks, but you want to benchmark into each bucket of types of email and then just improve and really turn a blind eye to industry averages, because what is the difference whether you're up or down or sideways against whatever ridiculous number that's floating out there? The majority of best practice and information you find on the internet about email marketing or almost any other channel marketing is borderline irrelevant and outdated, and you got to figure it out for yourself, sadly.
Very interesting what you just said now, because also I see in some of you have it in HubSpot, you have it in Marketo, and a lot of the time you look at your average or your average email health and stuff like that, but it's skewed, because if I'm sending a product update to my customers and I'm getting an 80% open rate there and a 70% click rate, it's like, wow, on average we're doing great. But then my newsletters, no one's opening. That is, obviously I'm not looking at the data correctly, and that's skewing everything. So that's very important.
Email's not a bucket, and everyone treats it as a bucket, and that's a fail.
So let's go in and start working on an email. I'm going to do the next poll. I'd love to ask everyone, is using emojis in my B2B subject line, is that unprofessional? Let's see what everybody has to say here.
I'm curious on this one.
Give it a minute. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it. Going once, going twice, ending the poll. 75% say disagree.
Disagree that what? It's unprofessional, or that it is professional? Which one?
They disagree that it's unprofessional.
Good. Those are smart people. Let me tell you something.
I think we can flip to the next slide.
Emojis just have a bad PR person. What I mean by that is, if emojis were called business icons instead of emojis, every business marketer would use them in their email. All right. You don't need to put a smiley face in your subject line if you're pushing, some sort of SaaS product, right? You can put a calendar. You can put a check mark. There's a lot of emojis that are not embarrassing to use. And the name of the game is, when you press send on your email, what are you doing to get your email to stand out and not everybody else's? And if you use an emoji, which I encourage you to do, you want it to be the first character of your subject line. Nobody reads the whole subject line. They read the first half. People put emojis at the end, and that is just a waste. right? So you put out that first character and it will give you a boost, but you just don't want to do it every time. Any tactic, especially in your subject lines, you want to rotate so you don't become wallpaper.
Got it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Mark, can you switch to the next slide? Because there's sorry, I think I jumped the gun. We'll come back to the from in a second here, but there's some other, what other subject line tips do we have? Next slide, Mark.
Okay.
There we go. Can you talk a little bit about putting the offer at the beginning?
Yeah. Oh, this is an interesting slide. One thing, just to take a step back on things to put in your subject line. If you go on Google right now and you Google something like email best practices, you'll see 100 articles that say avoid these spam trigger words, and there'll be lists, the 2024 spam trigger words to avoid, and avoid doing this. And that bothers me so much because that is information from 10 years ago, even though it's an article from today. The reason you go to junk folders and spam folders used to be because of the content, because of the words. If you put the word free in your subject line, if you put an exclamation point, if you capitalize the word in your subject line, these were all reasons you used to go to the junk folder and spam folder, because they were deemed to be spammy. And this is how receiving email networks would decide if something was a piece of garbage or not. But technology changed. And the reason you stay in the inbox is because of engagement that you have with that recipient. How often are they open, clicking, replying, interacting? It is not because of the words and symbols and things that you're doing in the subject line. So you really need to ignore these spam trigger word thingamabobs, because it's garbage. And you can use words like free. You can put a number in the subject line. You could put brackets in your subject line. You could write like a normal human being, and you will see actually your performance increase, because the very things you're supposed to avoid are the things that actually work. Right. So, as you see here, for example, you start your subject line with a number, the 7 email tips, whatever, the 4 things HR pros need to know. It's authoritative. It's definitive. People know it's going to be quick. You see open rates increase by about 20% just when you start with a number. If you start with a capitalized word like the word new or today, or you start with brackets and you put in what your offer is in those brackets, all of this at the start of your subject line and have a massive impact on people making the decision whether or not they're going to open it or not open it. So big fan of all that.
It's really a matter of visually standing out.
Yes.
All of the other things in your inbox, right? So if you're looking at your list of emails you've got to go through, which one is going to be the one that's visually going to catch your eye?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Because what we do in email, we all do it. We do the social scroll. We just kind of scroll down. In that millisecond, something grabs your attention. And it's not like you see the subject line and be like, wow, this thing has a number. This subject line's awesome. I'm opening this up. No, that's not what happened. It's a millisecond decision. And you're like, oh, I'll check it out. Right? And that's what we want. We need to grab that millisecond attention span that we all have. And these little things, they may feel gimmicky, but that's called marketing. Right? And that's what works.
So what you're saying is that people should forget kind of all the you need to be relevant, you need to get their attention, and now because of technology, actually we've gone in the other direction. What you couldn't do 10 years ago or 5-6 years ago is you can actually market it in the right way, which would actually stand out and make sense, and not worry that it's going to go to spam or to someone's inbox. I think we had another conversation about 6 or 7 months ago around this, that actually Microsoft and Google, which if you take Apple as well, those are like 90% of the inboxes anyway, because you've got Outlook and G Suite. And they do all this testing, as you said, as well, for the relevance to keep you in the inbox, and they'll decide if that goes into the promotions or the inbox and so on and so forth, based on taking a subset of that email that goes out and obviously the relevance of who you're sending it to. I think we had this conversation yesterday as well, where does it go to spam? I gave you an example of an auto confirmation email that goes out from a third-party webinar system that you've signed up, even though it's your contact that you're sending out the webinar invite. They come in, they sign up. they're in your database. If you send them an email directly, there's a good chance it will go into the right inbox. There's no problem. But what you told me is that now it's going to go into the system that doesn't know you, has never sent an email to you. So now it's complete cold email and it's irrelevant. There's no relevance. So there's a good chance that it will go into spam or it will go into some kind of promotion because they've never received an email from this company before.
Yeah, and a few things on that. So first off, to put everybody's mind not even at ease, probably the opposite of ease, about 15% of all emails from everybody goes into the junk or spam folder. And the reason I share that is you could do everything right? And if you go into your spam folder right now, you're going to find stuff in there that's sent by really big companies that are doing everything right. And that is the nature of the internet. So you can't lose your mind when you see one of your emails maybe hit the junk folder or spam folder. It's part of marketing. All right, that's part of the way it goes. But a combination of two things. If you are, in this case, let's say you're setting up a webinar, it's on some other platform, and they're emailing the confirmations to everybody registering for your webinar, that's going to be an email coming from a net new sending domain and IP address and all of that. But it goes to a bigger topic, and that is the most important email that you will ever send to anybody is the first email that you send to anybody. What I mean by that is if somebody goes to a form, they fill out a form on your site and they hit submit, and now what do? You send them the autoresponder. Similar to if you have a separate webinar platform, and they're sending the autoresponder from this net new system, right? And it's new to the recipient. They've never gotten an email from you before. It is the most important email that you'll ever send, because if you can get that email opened, that autoresponder opened and interacted with, the likelihood of you staying in that person's inbox moving forward goes up exponentially, because the receiving email network learns, it says, oh, this new sender, the recipient likes this new sender. I'll make sure to keep all the email from this new sender to stay in the inbox. So the tactic that marketers don't do that they need to do is they need to get that first email open. So when someone buys something from you or downloads something for you or fills out that form on your site for the first time, or you give them their email address at a trade show booth and they email you for the first time, the worst thing that you can do is send them an email that just says thank you in the subject line. That is a fail. What you want to do is get them to open it. Thank you, special gift inside. Thank you, 10% off inside. Thank you, just for our new customers. Check this out, ... Anything that you can humanly write in that subject line to get them to open up that first email, because it's not about selling something new or getting more business or getting more whatever. You are establishing, from a technical point of view, this initial bridge that's going to allow all of your emails to stay in that inbox. And too often, all we do is it says thank you, and nobody opens it, and then your emails go to junk the next time you send. And it's the same thing for the webinar platforms. So it annoys me.
That's amazing. That's really that's a great takeaway. I think that's yeah. I also what we've also done is that we make sure that autoresponder, if you can, and it depends on the different types of systems you're using, if that can be like an operational email that if someone unsubscribes or something like that, you've asked for something. I'm not talking about sending out a cold email now. You've asked for something, you're expecting to get it. So that's the other thing. The chance of you opening that first email when I filled out a form or when I signed up is actually greater, because I'm waiting for something. If I suddenly get an email, I'm expecting that email to come into my inbox. I'll be surprised if I don't get one. So also with downloading ebooks or content or anything that you're giving away, don't feel bad about sending that follow-up email. What you're saying is that something you have to do, because
Absolutely.
that will open the gate, number one. And number two, they expecting it. It's not that you're going to, they can click on the email and download from there. They're expecting to get an email anyway. And that's the way of starting the conversation and engagement with them.
And send it fast. If you don't get that email there within 10 minutes, you are done. I mean, you ever buy something or whatever and you don't get the email really fast? You're like, do I have to call customer service? Like, what is going on here? I mean,
something's broken here.
Critical on the autoresponder.
Got it.
So I know we skipped a slide, Mark. If you want to go back and talk about the froms So this is sort of similar, right? In terms of visually standing out, you can use the from field in your email to stand out.
Yeah, this is like, I don't know why marketers aren't paying attention to this, but so if I send you an email, okay, my email address is the letter J Schwedelson at corpwd.com. Really ugly, long email address. But when it shows up in your inbox, it just says my name, Jay Schwedelson. And we all do that, right? You could make the from name whatever you want. The from name also sometimes is called the alias. It's sometimes called the friendly from. But literally in every email sending platform on earth, doesn't matter what you use, every time you go to send out a campaign, you can change the from name. You're not changing your sending address. This does not impact deliverability. You can change the from name on every send that you do. And it's literally a creative writing contest, and it takes 5 seconds, and it has a huge impact on performance. And when you're done listening to this whole webinar and you go back and you look at your inbox, I want you to look at the from names. And what you're going to see, right? Like when Salesforce sends out their emails, they don't just write salesforce.com as their from name. It'll say Salesforce events. It'll say Salesforce Dreamforce. It'll say Salesforce new product information, right? It is essentially the start of your subject line. When you detail out what it is that this email is about in the from name, it increases the open rate to your emails, in some cases over 30%. The other magic of the from name is it gives you the ability to send out more email. I'll give you an example. On any given day, you probably get around 5 emails from Apple. You get one that says the App Store in the from name, maybe Apple Card, maybe Apple Fitness, right? Maybe something about just the iPhone, maybe Apple News, but you have one email address with Apple, one, okay? And all they're doing is changing the from name to be aligned with whatever it is that they're going to be talking to you about. And in your mind, you don't get angry and say, hey, Apple sent me 5 emails today. They're annoying. You don't think of it that way. You think of it as 5 different things. So for your own business, we're all fighting of who I want to send out more, but they already sent an email out. I want to do this. I want to send an email out. If you use that from name, you could almost make yourself into 5 different things. You know, Acme events, Acme newsletter, you know, Acme FYI. So that from name allows you to get higher engagement, and it also gives the ability to send out more without annoying people. So it's like the hidden gem of email marketing.
It's amazing. So in essence, what you're saying is because I have 2 lines in my email, I have the from, and then beneath that below that I have the actual subject line. That's what I'm seeing. You can use that as context.
Yes.
Before I even read my subject line, I know, okay, this has got to do with music. This has got to do with events. This has got to do with a newsletter. And then I read the line, and then it's a combination between the two. It's amazing how, I mean, I think with the bigger companies, when you say it now, it makes sense. I can see it in my inbox. But with business emails, I haven't come across too many that are using that correctly. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and you know the way
they're always trying to be personal. It's from Mark. We even here where it says Mark from Penguin. That
which works too, by the way. That does well too. You know that's
yeah.
a winner.
I mean, it's more personal, but if I could put a context in it, it'd make even more sense.
Yeah, to me, the way that email works is that you think of it as a chain. That anywhere that the chain breaks, you're going to lose the person. So the from address is that first chain, and then the subject line, then the pre-header, then the headline, and you need to make sure all those chains kind of keep the person tied into what you're doing, because any false move is where you lose them, and it starts with the from.
Amazing.
So the next thing you'll see after you use the from, the subject line, and then we'll look at a pre-header. Why is a pre-header important?
So the pre-header, for everybody that's listening, is really what we call that second subject line, right? It's that kind of grayed out line below your subject line. And the worst thing you could ever do is to include what I call format issue link information, where it says, if you're having trouble viewing this, click here. Don't do that, because the person hasn't opened up your email yet. So how do they even know if they're having trouble viewing your email? It's moronic, and there's no other way to put it, right? So that real estate is so valuable because it's another deciding factor of whether somebody's going to open up your email or not. Right. So what you want to do is really want to drive home the offer. You have about 85 characters in that pre-header, but really just like the subject line, nobody's reading the whole thing. But in that pre-header, you want to drive home that offer. You can even personalize in the pre-header, which most people don't even think about. You could put all sorts of different personalization in there. So the pre-header is your second subject line, super valuable real estate. Another really wacko thing to test, which we're actually seeing do well here and there, is having no pre-header once in a while. And the reason that sometimes works is when you look at your inbox, you see the from name, you see the subject line, and then you see the pre-header everybody has. But if you have absolutely no pre-header, your email actually stands out a little bit because everybody has a pre-header now. So once in a while, it's a fun tactic to actually have no pre-header to actually stand out.
So it's kind of cleaner when I'm looking,
Yeah.
as you said, I'm scrolling down, it just naturally stands out more.
So we have just on this thing about the pre-header and testing that on mobile to make sure that you not have that do you see this or are you having issues seeing this? Let's look at how many people are always testing their emails on mobile. I'm going to end that poll. 67% says sometimes. 33% says always.
Well, you got to be testing on mobile. Over 70% of all primary email opens, which are the first time somebody opens up an email, happen on a mobile device. But I'll tell you, in terms of testing your email, there's something else I would recommend almost more than testing on a mobile device. When somebody gets an email from you and they click on a link in an email, if it takes longer than 3 seconds to get to the destination page, you'll lose over 30% of the people that just clicked in terms of them continuing on. The mistake that marketers make is that when they set up their landing pages, their destination pages, all that stuff, those pages are already cached into your computer. They're in your computer, right? And when you're setting up your email, you have all these tracking links, these redirects, and all these different things. You're tracking all this stuff. So when somebody clicks on your email, they're going through all these different redirects to get to the destination page. But when you test your email, you're testing it on your computer. You're clicking on the links on your computer that already has been to these landing pages. All right, so it's cached. So you're not getting the same experience that somebody gets that's net new to the links in your email. So what you want to do is take the link that you are clicking on, copy and paste that link, open up an incognito browser, or have somebody in another department or whatever click on the emails and make sure that it's not taking an inordinate amount of time to get to your destination page. I'm sure all of us have found this, that sometimes you send out a campaign, you'd be like, I don't understand. We had a 40% open rate. We had a 6% click-through rate, and nobody filled out the form. We had like one person fill out the form. How is it possible all these people clicked and nobody filled out the form? And it's because you're not even aware of an issue that you have because you're not testing it in an environment that really is the environment that everybody else is operating in. So you really want to have this net new kind of fresh computer, if you will, when you're testing.
That's brilliant. The other thing that I would add to that, adding to what you're saying, is also the mobile side. Yes. So sometimes what I've said is that the mobile email looks great, but the landing page is not optimized for email. And then you do have people that are actually clicking when they're commuting or everything, not only opening the email, they click on it. And then one, as you said, takes a long time to get, and then they carry on, looking to the next email or whatever. Or two, it's not optimized. Your landing page or where you're sending them is not optimized for mobile, so you lose them there as well because you only tested on desktop. So the 67% that we said is not testing the email, you need to test both of them, the email and the mobile. And I think that number is probably even higher because, as you said, the open rates are complete. Like most people are starting their day with looking at their email. And they don't even have to open them. They can scroll down and just actually look at the subject lines and decide if they're going to open it at a later stage or not. I think that's where it's becoming a lot of a challenge. But that's not happening on your computer. That's happening on your device. So it's mobile first when it comes to email. I think is like a no-brainer in the sense that you should assume that everyone's going to look at your email the first time on your mobile, and then if you're lucky, they're going to open it on your desktop. and actually have that second conversation, the second engagement with you.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. It should be the opposite way, where we design everything for mobile, and if it doesn't look great on desktop, so be it, because mobile is so much more important. And to your point, the landing page is everything. The marketers make the mistake that they think that, oh, we're going to collect all these fields, and everybody's going to fill it out because we need to collect all these fields. And what we found is every additional must-fill field that you ask somebody to fill out, you'll lose 8% of your registrants. And the other interesting stat that we have found, that any form that has more than 8 fields to fill out, if it's not a 2-step form, the where it has step 1 and step 2, if you have more than 8 fields and it's not a 2-step form, you lose a ton of your conversions, because people visually look at it and you're like, oh, this feels like homework. I don't want to do it. So you don't want to have a lot of fields. And if you're going to have a lot of fields, you can't put them all on one screen, because you'll lose everybody.
I think that also goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, what the goal is and
Yeah.
what the context of what I'm trying to do. So if I send you a webinar invite and I need that basic information, first name, last name, email, I should try and get away with the minimum amount of information, because if I'm emailing you, I have your email.
Right.
It suddenly arrive out of nowhere. So
Right.
I don't have to collect that data again. What we've done a few times is that if I'm offering something which of interest, like an ebook, and I want you to download it, I should send you, and they're all tricks that you can have a progressive profiling on the form, so that if you're in the database and you click on the email, I could even get to a landing page that says download now, and you're actually filling the form when you click on download now, because I'm not asking for anything that I don't have. So I have 2 options there. One is I can ask for additional information. I would do that with email because it looks a bit creepy. But and a second question, or get rid of that completely and just click on a button where they're filling out the form. They don't know they're filling out the form, where it says download now. And because I have first name, last name, email, and company anyway, because I just emailed you.
Exactly.
And then it's like, you're giving this away for free. That's brilliant. That's even better. Like, why should I be collecting your data again unless I'm asking for more information?
100% right. We want to make this as easy as possible. Any barrier to getting the conversion done, you want to remove them as much as you can. So I agree with you. I don't know what they always ask for email after they already have the email. It's the most bizarre thing in the world.
All right. Well, so we've got 10 minutes left, and we haven't even gotten to the body of our email. So let's move on. I just asked the group, how long is your typical email? And let's see what they say. 100% are saying under 100. So the options were under 75 words, under 100 words, or under 250 words. And 100% said under 100 words. I don't know if that's true. I think people are peacocking here, but what do you think of that?
Well, I think the first thing you have to think about is who you're emailing to. If you're emailing to prospects, or if you're emailing to existing customers sort of care about your products and your services because they're paying for stuff from you. And you can be a little bit more verbose because they're invested. They need to know, right? But if you're communicating with prospects, they don't care about you. They barely opened up that email, and you need to really do it in the most concise possible way, that under 75 words, because they don't care. So first, think about who you're marketing to. And then in general, you want to think about how it feels visually. Is it visually boring? And what we mean by that is, if you have a block of text and it's 3 lines of text versus 5 lines of text, if it's 3 lines of text, your click-through rate will go up by over 25% versus the identical information that's in 5 lines of text. Because it's like, you ever get a text message from a friend or a family member, and it's a big block, and you're like, oh, I'll read that later. That's drama. I don't know what that says, right? Well, you're not going to do that in email. You're just never going to read the email because you're like, I don't really care, right? And so visually boring emails that have these big blocks of text are a loser. Less is more. Nobody cares, honestly, about whatever it is that you're writing. So you need to get it out into the universe very fast.
I have a question then. if we're creating a set of nurture emails, okay, for example, where these are not customers, they're prospects that are in the database, they've already received that autoresponder, that's how they came in, let's say B2B. And now we want to nurture them to see, to be top of mind, kind of. So the one way of doing it, as you said, is a newsletter, which is usually very colorful, very visual. It looks great. And then in parallel, I'm sending them very relevant content, but I'm seeing two different types of emails that are going out. One are let's be more salesy and less marketing, and then it's just basic text with 3 or 4 lines, maybe a bit longer, where there's a link to a blog, or the other option where it's very colorful and a big view our blog here with a nice button, and you click on it and it takes you to that piece of content. What's your take on that?
Having one format that you send out your emails in is a mistake. Every company, and a lot of times marketers will have a template. They made a template. This is what we send our emails. Maybe we move around an image, move around things a little bit, but we have a template, and it checks every best practice box, whatever your template is. And that's what they send out their emails until 6 months later when they change their template. That's not the way to do it. What you want to do is basically every third email, you want it to be a radically different format. So you could send out the pretty, HTML format emails and then send out another pretty HTML format email. But then that third email should be a letter format email, right? And the reason that you want to have multiple formats is I'm sure there are brands right now that if I said to yourself, think of a brand you get email from all the time, and without opening up the email, can you see their template? And you probably can. Right. And the problem with that is you tend not to open up those emails anymore because they're wallpaper. You basically know what they look like and they feel like. But when brands insert a radical departure format about every third email, we see overall performance on all their emails go up because in the person's subconscious, there's this curiosity of maybe this one's different, right? Maybe this is some sort of different thing. And they engage with the emails overall more. So it's not which one's better, right? Is it graphic heavy? Is it text heavy? Is it this? The answer is yes, all of the above. And you need to incorporate many formats to keep the interest level high.
And does there need to be any correlation between what you're offering or you giving away content-wise and the format?
Not necessarily. I mean, some of the best performing things are, letter format emails saying, hey, we got a new guide. I thought you'd find this interesting. It's like 2 lines of text. Here you go. Same piece of content, right? You send out via an HTML email and it says, here's our guide, big, beautiful headline, download it here. And they both do great, right? They're totally disparate formats promoting the same thing. And by the way, different people will react to it differently. You'll get a different population of people. So it's not a either or, it's an and.
What about the CTA and the copy in the CTA itself? The famous submit button.
Well, yeah. Well, CTAs to me within your email are just so powerful if you do them the right way. Here's what we don't want to do that we all do. Let's say you're promoting a webinar. What do we all do on our buttons? The buttons in your email. We
Register.
Put the word register. I hate that word. Okay. If you write your call to action buttons in first person, it will increase your click-through rates by over 20%. What do I mean by that? Let's say you did an A/B test. One email was promoting a webinar. It said register. The other email had a call to action button that says save my spot, or it says register, or it says I want in, right? Which one would you rather click on? It's more active. You feel more engaged. You feel closer to it. Getting the person to feel that it is a benefit to them as opposed to a commitment that they're being asked to make. It's the same thing with download. I hate the word download. Download. No, I don't want to download. It says, send it my way. Or it says, ooh, I can't wait to read this, right? That can actually be your call to action button. Make it engaging, make it fun, make it something that the person wants. Don't make it homework for them. And that's how you can win.
Save my spot. That's great.
All right, let's talk about we're have a few more minutes left. Let's talk about email signatures in your one-to-one email.
Love it. I'm all in.
What is? Go ahead. I'll let you.
I'll be honest. I have failed with my email signature. This is something that I'm personally working more on now because click-through rates on email signatures are enormous, right? They're huge. And a lot of times our email signatures are outdated. We're not including promotional stuff in there or new content in there. If you're not spending time on your email signature, I think that you're making just an epic mistake, which frankly I have been making for years. I thought it was meaningless, but then once we dug into the data, it's like, wow, we got to start promoting stuff in our signatures for sure.
How do you track? Is it just a UTM in the emails, and you're just
exactly right? Yeah.
There are all kinds of softwares that you can also do as well, and then you can have separate CTAs and so on. But what I found recently, I think even last week, was very interesting. I would try to reach out to someone. I remember they were in my inbox. Yeah, like if you think about it, your inbox is your vault of a lot of information, like your mini CRM. And I was like, how do I get hold of this person? I know he sent me an email. I searched for him, found him. And then I said, okay, well, now I got to take the domain, put it in the address, start searching for it. If I gone to he had no signature at all. So not a name, not a title, not a phone number, nothing. Obviously, I wanted to buy from him, and he didn't want to buy, and he didn't want to sell anything. But that's besides the point. But if I click in, if I at least had the domain, I would have gone, automatically. So I think that's also important. If you're trying to sell something, put in as much information they get hold of you, because maybe someone does want to get hold of you.
Yes.
And at least put in the domain of the company that you're working at, which can be in the logo or whatever, so that they don't have to go and look for that. They click on the button, takes them. I agree with you. I think we've done that a few times where it's extra real estate that it's there anyway, to have a nice banner of our next webinar is coming in, March 25th, have that. The other thing which is very interesting is that you can actually add that in everyone's signature.
Yes.
Across the board. So suddenly all the emails that are going out from 50, 100, 300 people are suddenly now promoting that piece of content. So it's a great marketing tool across the board. And the bigger the company is, even better. And there they have tools that you can automatically change the promotion, and it will change for everyone.
Exactly right.
On a corporate level, it's you got to do it obviously with taste, and it has to be done correctly. But that for sure can bring interesting results. And then change your email signature regularly. That's also that kind of ties into what you're talking about before. Is that otherwise it becomes wallpaper if I keep saying the same thing.
Exactly right.
Okay, cool.
We have a question from the audience. He said, should B2B companies enforce business email addresses in forms, or is asking for a Gmail address for B2B, is that okay?
This is a tough one. I like when forms allow for any address to be entered in. I really do. And we see form submissions be much higher when you allow any address to be entered in. But on the flip side of that, you see a lot more throwaway addresses used, where people just sign up, have an address where they use to just get that they never check, right, with some sort of personal domain. So it's really depending on the company itself. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but it is it's a tough call.
I would also add to that. I'm just going to add one word to that about that. I think it also depends what type of form it is. So if it's a contact us form or a demo form, and you're not doing business with, like, if you're doing business with developers, then give them the choice they might use their Gmail, they might use their business email. But if you're selling to an enterprise customer and they want to actually buy something from you, then you can say, okay, well, I want the business email, because if they really want to reach out, well, in the content wise, webinars and so on, then keep it open and say, okay, well, whoever wants to join, I'm educating the masses, and then let them come in. Maybe it depends who your audience is. I think that's
Absolutely.
important, because we've seen that you're selling to the enterprise, but you need the developers to help you.
Right.
And then, or you need third-party people to help you, and then they don't work in the companies, or they're freelancers. So you need to understand the context around who you're marketing to as well, and keep
For
it
sure.
open or keep it
For
closed.
sure.
So we are at time, and I want to let Jay go. You've been so generous with your time. For everybody in the chat, there is a link to download this free cheat sheet that it covers a lot of what we talked about today. And Mark, if you'll go to the next slide. Jay, how can people find you if they want to follow you?
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
totally.
Wait, before you jump in on that,
Yeah.
I just want to say that our next episode is happening March 22nd, and you can also sign up for the next episode in the chat. I'll put that in the chat now. And now, Jay, how can we find you? Sorry.
So please connect with me on LinkedIn. I share stuff all the time on LinkedIn. It's just, you'll find my name there. Also, my podcast is called Do This, Not That with Jay Schwedelson. I put out episodes every week. And if you want to find out everything going on in my world, you can just go to my full name, jschwedelson.com. And there's links to every site that I'm involved with. And, I really appreciate the invite. This has been great. Super, super fun being here.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Mark,
This has been great.
Yeah, and everybody can contact us as well at penguinstrategies.com.